Story 1. The Uninvited Guest Outline. 1. The New Neighbor. The Smiths had just moved into their new home, excited to start a new chapter in their lives. As they were unpacking, they noticed a strange old man watching them from across the fence. He introduced himself as Mr. Jenkins, their new neighbor. He seemed friendly, but there was something unsettling about his gaze. Rachel, the wife, felt a chill run down her spine as he handed her a plate of freshly baked cookies. "Welcome to the neighborhood," he said with a smile. As they chatted, Rachel couldn't help but notice the eerie silence surrounding Mr. Jenkins's house. The curtains were always drawn, and the lawn was immaculately manicured, but it felt lifeless. As the days went by, Rachel started to notice strange noises coming from Mr. Jenkins' house. Creaks and groans echoed through the night, making it hard for her to sleep. She brushed it off as an old house settling, but the feeling of being watched persisted. One night, she woke up to the sound of her front door creaking open. She froze, her heart racing, as she heard footsteps entering their home. Outline 2. The Midnight Visitor. Rachel slowly got out of bed and crept towards the living room, trying not to make a sound. That's when she saw him, Mr. Jenkins, standing in their living room staring at their family photos. He was holding a cup of coffee, and his eyes seemed to gleam in the dark. Rachel tried to scream, but her voice was caught in her throat. Mr. Jenkins turned around and their eyes met. For a moment they just stared at each other. Then he smiled and said, "I hope you like the coffee. I brought some over." Rachel was paralyzed with fear, unsure of what to do next. The air was thick with tension as Rachel tried to process what was happening. The smell of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, making her stomach turn. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, and her mind was racing with worst-case scenarios. Mr. Jenkins' presence seemed to fill the room, making it hard for her to breathe. Outline 3. The Unsettling Discovery. The next day, Rachel confronted Mr. Jenkins about the incident. He acted as if nothing had happened, claiming he had just dropped by to introduce himself again. Rachel wasn't convinced. She started to investigate Mr. Jenkins' background, but it was as if he didn't exist. No records, no social media, nothing. It was as if he had materialized out of thin air. As she dug deeper, she discovered that the previous owners of Mr. Jenkins's house had moved away abruptly, leaving behind their belongings. A chill ran down her spine as she realized that something was very wrong. Rachel's research led her to an old newspaper article about a family that had lived in Mr. Jenkins' house decades ago. The article mentioned a tragic accident that had claimed the lives of the entire family. Rachel felt a shiver run down her spine as she connected the dots. Was Mr. Jenkins somehow connected to the tragedy? The more she learned, the more she became convinced that Mr. Jenkins was not of this world. Outline 4. The Terrifying Truth. One night, Rachel woke up to the sound of her children screaming. She rushed to their room to find Mr. Jenkins standing over their beds, his eyes glowing in the dark. She grabbed her kids and ran out of the house, not stopping until they were safely locked in their car. As they drove away, Rachel caught a glimpse of Mr. Jenkins standing in their front yard, his eyes fixed on them. The Smiths never returned home. They later discovered that Mr. Jenkins had been a neighbor to the family that died in the tragic accident. He had been waiting for a new family to move in, to relive the past. The Smiths realized that some neighbors are better left unknown. The darkness seemed to close in around them as they drove away from the house. Rachel couldn't shake off the feeling that Mr. Jenkins was still watching them, even from a distance. The memory of his glowing eyes haunted her, and she knew that she would never be able to erase the terror she felt that night. Story 2. The Creepy Apartment Next Door Outline. 1. The mysterious neighbor Lena had just moved into a new apartment, excited to start her new job. As she was unpacking, she noticed a strange smell coming from next door. It was a pungent, decaying odor that seemed to seep into her apartment. She tried to ignore it, but the smell persisted. One day she met her neighbor, an old woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Kwan. Mrs. Kwan seemed friendly, but Lena couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. As Lena got to know Mrs. Kwan, she started to notice strange noises coming from her apartment. Thumps and bangs echoed through the night, making it hard for Lena to sleep. She tried to brush it off as the old building settling, but the noises seemed to be getting louder and more frequent. Outline 2. The unsettling noises. Lena started to feel like she was living in a nightmare. The noises were getting worse and she couldn't take it anymore. She confronted Mrs. Kwan, who claimed she was just an old woman who liked to watch TV at night. But Lena wasn't convinced. She started to investigate, poking around the vents and ducts between their apartments. That's when she discovered a hidden compartment filled with old photographs and newspaper clippings. The images depicted a young woman who looked identical to Mrs. Kwan, but with a twisted, sinister grin. The air was thick with the smell of decay as Lena explored the hidden compartment. She felt a chill run down her spine as she realized that Mrs. Kwan was hiding something. The photographs seemed to be telling a story, but Lena couldn't quite piece it together. Outline 3. The dark past. As Lena dug deeper, she uncovered a dark history surrounding Mrs. Kwan. The newspaper clippings revealed a tragic story of a young woman who had died under mysterious circumstances. The photographs showed Mrs. Kwan's doppelganger with the same twisted grin. Lena realized that Mrs. Kwan was not who she claimed to be. The noises, the smell, it all made sense now. Mrs. Kwan was not just a neighbor, she was a harbinger of death. Lena's heart was racing as she pieced together the evidence. She felt like she was living in a horror movie, and she didn't know how to escape. The darkness seemed to be closing in around her, and she knew she had to get out. Outline 4. The horrific revelation. One night, Lena woke up to the sound of Mrs. Kwan's TV blaring in the next room. She got out of bed and approached the shared wall, pressing her ear against it. That's when she heard Mrs. Kwan's voice, whispering a haunting melody. The voice sent shivers down Lena's spine. As she listened, the melody grew louder and the TV went silent. Lena felt a presence behind her and turned around to see Mrs. Kwan standing in her doorway, a twisted grin on her face. Lena knew she had to escape. She packed her bags and left, never looking back. The experience left her shaken, a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying horrors live right next door. The memory of Mrs. Kwan's grin haunted Lena for a long time. She knew that she had narrowly escaped something sinister, and she was grateful to be alive. Story 3. The Haunting of Blackwood House. Outline 1. The Mysterious Inheritance. Emily had always been fascinated by the abandoned Blackwood house on the outskirts of town. When she inherited it from a distant relative, she saw it as an opportunity to uncover the secrets within its walls. As she stepped inside, she felt a chill run down her spine. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and cobwebs clung to the chandeliers. But Emily was determined to restore the house to its former glory. As she started to explore the house, Emily noticed strange noises. Creaks and groans echoed through the halls, making it seem like the house was alive. She tried to brush it off as the old house settling, but the noises seemed to be getting louder and more frequent. Outline 2. The ghostly apparitions. As Emily delved deeper into the house, she started to experience strange occurrences. Doors creaked open on their own, and she caught glimpses of a ghostly figure flitting around the corners. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but the events escalated. One night, she woke up to the sound of footsteps outside her bedroom door. As she watched, the door creaked open and a figure stood in the doorway. Emily froze, paralyzed with fear. The darkness seemed to be coalescing into a presence, and Emily could feel its malevolent energy. She tried to scream, but her voice was caught in her throat. The figure seemed to be watching her, its presence making her skin crawl. Outline 3. The Dark History. As Emily researched the history of Blackwood House, she uncovered a tragic tale of love, loss, and murder. The ghostly apparitions made sense now. They were the restless spirits of those who had died within the house. Emily realized that she was not alone in the house. She was sharing it with the dead. The thought sent shivers down her spine, but she was determined to uncover the truth. The more she learned, the more Emily became convinced that the house was a nexus of dark energy. She started to experience vivid nightmares, and the ghostly apparitions became more frequent. It was as if the house was trying to tell her something, but she wasn't sure what. Outline 4. The terrifying conclusion. One night, Emily woke up to the sound of whispers in her ear. The voice was soft, raspy, and seemed to be coming from all around her. "Get out while you still can," it whispered. Emily didn't need any more convincing. She packed her bags and left Blackwood House, never to return. The experience left her shaken, a reminder that some places are better left unexplored. As she drove away from the house, Emily felt a sense of relief wash over her. She knew that she had narrowly escaped something sinister, and she was grateful to be alive. The memory of the whispers in her ear haunted her for a long time, a reminder of the horrors that lurked in the shadows. Story 4. The Neighbor from Hell Outline. 1. The new neighbor Mark had just moved into a new apartment, excited to start his new job. As he was unpacking, he met his neighbor, a gruff, burly man named Vic. Vic seemed friendly enough, but Mark noticed that he had a strange habit of staring at him. At first, Mark brushed it off as mere curiosity, but as the days went by, he started to feel uneasy. Vic would often knock on Mark's door, asking to borrow something or other. Mark would oblige, but he started to feel like Vic was taking advantage of his kindness. The requests became more frequent, and Mark started to feel like he was being manipulated. Outline 2. The creepy behaviors. Mark got to know Vic better. He started to notice strange behavior. Vic would often make loud noises in the middle of the night, and Mark would hear him talking to himself. The conversations were always one-sided, and Mark couldn't help but wonder who Vic was talking to. The behavior was starting to unnerve Mark, and he started to avoid Vic. But Vic seemed to be everywhere, always watching, always waiting. Mark started to feel like he was being stalked, and he didn't know how to escape. The feeling of being trapped was suffocating, and Mark knew he had to do something. Outline 3. The sinister intentions. One night, Mark came home to find Vic waiting for him outside his apartment. Vic was holding a package, and he handed it to Mark with a smile. "I got you something," he said. Mark was taken aback, but he opened the package to find a strange handmade doll inside. The doll was creepy, with a twisted, sinister grin. Mark knew he had to get rid of it, but Vic seemed to be watching him, waiting for him to make a move. The doll seemed to be watching Mark, its grin twisted and malevolent. Mark felt a chill run down his spine as he realized that Vic was not just a weird neighbor. He was a threat. Outline 4. The horrific truth. As Mark researched Vic's background, he discovered a dark history of stalking and harassment. Vic had a reputation for being a predator, and Mark realized that he had been a target all along. The doll was just the beginning. Mark knew he had to get out, but Vic seemed to be everywhere, always watching. Mark finally mustered the courage to confront Vic, but it was too late. Vic had already moved in, his presence suffocating. Mark was never seen again, and the apartment was left empty, a testament to the horrors that Vic had unleashed. The memory of Vic's grin haunted the neighbors for a long time, a reminder of the horrors that lurked in the shadows. Story 5. The Family Next Door Outline. 1. The Perfect Family. The Watsons had just moved into a new home, excited to start a new chapter in their lives. As they were unpacking, they met their new neighbors, the Smiths. The Smiths seemed like the perfect family, friendly, welcoming, and seemingly normal. But as the days went by, the Watsons started to notice strange behavior. The Smiths would often have loud family gatherings, but they would always end abruptly, with an eerie silence following. The Watsons would catch glimpses of the Smiths' children, but they seemed off. Their smiles seemed forced, and their eyes seemed to be watching. Outline 2. The unsettling behaviors. The Watsons got to know the Smiths better. They started to notice more and more strange behavior. The Smiths would often have strange ritualistic gatherings in their backyard. The Watsons would hear chanting and singing, and the air would be filled with an otherworldly energy. The Watsons tried to brush it off as mere eccentricity, but they couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong. The atmosphere around the Smiths' house seemed to be charged with an electric tension. The Watsons could feel it, a palpable sense of unease that seemed to be seeping into their own home. Outline 3. The dark, secret one night, the Watsons decided to investigate the Smiths' strange behavior. They snuck into their backyard, hiding behind a bush to watch the ritual. What they saw chilled them to the bone. The Smiths were gathered around a makeshift altar, their eyes closed and their voices chanting in unison. The Watsons realized that the Smiths were not a normal family. They were a coven practicing dark magic. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the Watsons could feel the energy building up. They knew they had to get out, but it was too late. The Smiths had seen them, and their eyes seemed to be burning with an otherworldly intensity. Outline 4. The terrifying revelation. The Watsons tried to flee, but the Smiths were too quick. They were caught, and their screams were drowned out by the chanting. The next morning, the police found the Watsons' car abandoned, but there was no sign of the family. The Smiths were never seen again, but the house remained, a testament to the horrors that had taken place within its walls. The neighbors whispered about the Smiths, a family that had seemed so perfect, but was, in reality, a front for something sinister. The house remained standing, a monolith to the horrors that had taken place within its walls. The memory of the Smiths haunted the neighborhood for a long time, a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying horrors are the ones that seem the most normal.